The all-important Crossbench will get to have their say on that. Allegra Spender is, of course, the independent member for Wentworth in New South Wales. Allegra Spender, good to talk to you. Good morning.
Thanks so much for having me, Virginia.
Do you believe that there is room or appetite, perhaps, in the public view for the Prime Minister to either break a promise or modify his promise?
Look, I think there's an opportunity to have a grown-up conversation about tax with the community. That's what I think we can do, and I think that's what the government should do this term, is really look at tax more broadly, and within that, obviously, income tax.
So you're actually calling for a broader conversation about tax reform?
Absolutely, because I think this is the conversation neither major party wanted to have before the election, because they're so effective at wedging each other about this. But the truth is that we do need to consider how we raise taxes in the future, both so that we can fund those critical services that we all need and rely on and want to have in Australia, but also so that we can do this in a way that actually it drives productivity, is efficient, is fair, and also drives environmental and economic sustainability. That's the tax system we want. And, I think all the experts are saying that's the tax system we don't have.
We clearly don't have time to have a broad conversation and to institute a review. And my mind immediately goes back to the Henry Review that was never taken up in any case and was just mothballed. So you'd hate for it to be another waste of time like that. But clearly there's no time for that before the October budget. So what do you think the government should do in relation to these promised so-called Stage 3 tax cuts when it comes to the October announcements?
Look, I don't think the government should do anything in relation to that before the October budget or for the October budget. I think, I think that the economic, to justify this on the basis of changing economic circumstances or, pressures on the budget isn't real, because we have, we've known, I think, even going into the May election, it was clear that there were some concerns with the economy in the future, and we also knew very clearly there were going to be pressures on the budget. So I don't think the government should do anything, but I do think that they should say, make a commitment in this budget to do a tax review. And it's not a Henry review of, taking several years. We've done a lot of the research. It's now actually to put together different options and start to have that mature conversation with the Australian people.
And is that what you, as a member of the Crossbench group, are you actively speaking to either the Federal Treasurer or Anthony Albanese about that?
Look, I've been advocating for that publicly and privately, and we'll be writing and speaking to them even about that further. And I think we need to be clear that the government has a bunch of options when it comes to raising tax. There are things like windfall profit tax on the gas companies, for example, who are making extraordinary profits because of the war in Ukraine. We've got options for mining and resource taxes. We've got options for fuel tax credit reductions. These are just some of those taxes that we could consider, which would also drive environmental sustainability, which were subject of your previous story. So I think we should be having this broader conversation rather than, I think, quite an unhelpful conversation, which is really also pitching people, the rich versus the not rich is how I think some people are trying to cast this Stage 3 conversation. And I don't think that's constructive at all.
No, and it's also, of course, being framed, and I guess you'd understand this from the point of view of, pure political reporting, which is not what I do here. But from the point of view of the press gallery, they've been pitching it in terms of, is it a potential broken promise? Can a clean-skinned Prime Minister like this get away with a broken promise? How do you do that? How do you keep faith with the electorate? Is that part, or should it be part of the conversation?
Look, I think that people want governments they can trust. And I genuinely think that, this is why I don't think the government should do anything about Stage 3 tax cuts, particularly in this budget, because there's no, I think, real justification for them to say the world is so different that, the promise they made a few months ago doesn't hold. So I think that is the case. But I think if the government had a mature conversation with the Australian people about saying, look, we think this is more difficult than we realise, and this is where these are the options we have. I think that's a conversation we could have. And people would have more faith with that than just a bit of reactionary, we said this, or no, now we're going to change our mind about that. I think people would lose faith on that.
Allegra Spender is with you, independent member for Wentworth. So when it comes to any change about this particular element, is there an element of it on which the crossbenchers as a group, if you do operate as a group on this particular issue, that you would want to object to or stand in the way of? Are you formulating your actions around that?
Look, I think the crossbench is a group of independents, and so I think there's actually a variety of different views from independents in the crossbench in the House and also in the Senate, and that they don't all agree. But I do think there's certainly I know there are a number of people who have appetite for saying, look, let's have a broader conversation about tax. I was on a panel with Zoe Daniel last week regarding this, and we both agree that if we had a broader conversation about tax, there's the opportunity to do something which would set us up really properly for the future. You also see Sophie Scoms and Kylie Tinker, I think, have both said, look, these tax acts are 18 months away, so this isn't the budget to be having any conversation about that.
Yeah.
And I support that as well.
Good to talk to you this morning, Allegra Spender. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Virginia.
Allegra